All right. Looks to be good. Let me double check if I have some sound. Okay, we have sound, which is the first no problem sound. Some lights. And I am overexposed, of course. There we go. Wouldn't be like a perfect one. All right. So, let me chill a bit on the music. All right, so welcome everybody. I am actually 1 minute early. That would be the first time it ever happened. So today we are going to give like Stitches.js a very uninformed test drive. I just read the documentation once, and it looks to be really interesting. I trust Christian to always deliver super high quality things and super nice for the developer things. So I'm a little bit biased, and yeah, so we are going to get going. Let me just get the documentation up. There we go. Documentation is going to be up soon, and we are going to start from the very beginning. So let's jump in my virtual background here and do like a very high level overview of what I expect it to be, and we'll see on the stream if it actually is what I expect it to be. And but I think I have a pretty good idea and of what's really nice about it and what's maybe some limitation. So we'll check those on the way. So Stitches is a CSS-in-JS library, so it will help you style your components, build your React apps as you want, with all of the good stuff of CSS-in-JS. So you will get like vendor prefixing and all of the things like this. But what really interests me is this idea of variance, which if you're familiar with like stuff with like style component and stuff like this, you probably are more familiar with stuff that looks like color is equal to, there you go, and then you go in and you have like your props, which is like the theme, for instance, and you do stuff like this, and you have theme, colors, primary color, and you have this all over the place. And in style component, you would just like close it as if it was a CSS thing. So you have all of those functions where you can do crazy things inside it to effectively do variants. So if you have like a small button, hello Pedro, thank you for joining that very prepared stream. You'll be very wise to not record anything, because I'm gonna crash a lot and don't take two things too personally. I'm a little bit stupid, so there we go. So yeah, so you have like those functions that just like props and crypts up into pretty much all of your components. And it brings like, to me, like two big problems. One is it makes your components that you export do a lot of work that should be made by someone else, like another component. It's not really at the display level to just say, oh, I'm on a small screen, I'm doing this kind of display, or I'm in this whatever mode, I'm going this kind of display. It should be on the parent component that says, this is a simple button, display. So that way of doing variants is really enticing to me. And also it makes everything way easier to understand, and your components, like your components that you want to share, way easier to style for your designer. So at some point, I'll jump in and props up the style guide that we have at my company where I work, and see if I can transpose everything into Stitches. The other thing that's really interesting to me is Christian is always doing everything with like the super TypeScript purist way of doing things. So I expect the typings to be amazing. Yeah, that's pretty much the big things. For those that don't know what I do, I usually am more fond of really bare bones CSS. I write my things myself. I do auto vendor prefixing myself. But when you work in a team with multiple peoples and stuff like this, this approach is very, very difficult to sustain long term. And everyone is like, hey, where does that style come from? It comes from this module, from those descendants and stuff like this. It makes everything super, super difficult to maintain, and everything becomes very intertwined. So yeah, I'm going to speak a little bit of CSS modules because it's going to be built in Next.js. So sometimes I'll just use them to show what would be the differences. And also going to speak a little bit about style component because I think that's the closest, not competitor, but just like project that do like styling in terms of how it shows, but they have very, very distinct philosophy. So I'm going to jump maybe into those as well if I manage to do something out of Stitches. All right, so first of all, I created a 100% empty Git repository. I'm going to link it into the description when we'll be done. And we are going to start by setting up a few different things to get our environment going. So today we are going to use Next.js because I think it's the easiest framework for React that you can use and just get going, and also because it has like pretty good support of TypeScript and everything. So we're gonna try those in conjunction. All right, so we are going to npm init stitches, sure, version 1 definitely not, but sure, description, live stream test of stitches. There we go, entry point, it doesn't really matter here. Test command, we don't want it. Keywords, there's really authors. Okay, let's use me. License, MIT, do whatever you want. And that creates my package.json. Now we are going to install a bunch of required pieces, including Next.js, and I'm going to try to do it from the first time. All right, so Next.js is called Next in npm, if I recall correctly. I need React, I need React DOM, I will need TypeScript, and that should be all for the absolutely necessary things. Let's go install all the good stuff. And after that, I will have to install the types just to get going, and we'll do some setup for like convenience, quality of life, whatever DX you want to call. All right, I get my next React DOM, TypeScript, all good. And now I need to save dev. I think it's types node, if I'm not mistaken, and types React. All right, so we're gonna go and try to create our first page, folder, page. and we are going to call this guy index tsx. So you're not required to import React in your like first entry points in Next.js, but by convention I'll always find it way easier to just import it all the time. Call it main, it doesn't really matter, and it's gonna return the good old h1 hello world. All right, and here we can change our package script to do a bunch of stuff that we want. So I like to call it dev. It's gonna be next build, somewhat useful. Next build, and let's call it start. That should be good. All right, there we go. It creates my TS config. There we go. So if you're not using TypeScript, you don't have to do all of those things, that configuration. I'm really doing like the bare minimum of stuff what I like to have. You can configure it the way you want. So the first thing I really like is having the base URL of your project be whatever you use. So in my case, I use dot, so it can be here. You can use dot source and stuff. Doesn't really matter. But what's really interesting is once you use the base URL, you can create path in Next, which means you can have a data store kind of, and you can call it this way, data whatever is going to be. So it's an array, and then you give it the path that you want. So for instance, data. But the most important one for me is really components, because I really hate having those dot slash where you go up and down and you don't know where you are. So always like to have those here. This guy is going to be source, if I manage to type it, components, there we go. And usually I have like a very catch-all thing, which is my Linux preferences, and this is just going to source. All right, and I'm pretty sure I need to get them something like this as well. All right, includes looks good, exclude looks good. There we go. Save this guy, quit, relaunch, and we should have a local host that tells us something. If it does. Yes. All right. So we are good to go. Next.js is going to be configured for now. We are going to be very good soldiers and follow the documentation at first. So if you already have done all of this, you don't really need to do anything about this. Yeah, I'm going to go this to have like a first touch of Stitches, and then we're going to try like crazy things. So let's install Stitches. And let's see, performance, lightweight. Yes, so one of the good things about Stitches, if I understand correctly, is this idea of doing everything atomically. So you won't have your massive components that try to write over each other's. Like everything that use display flex, for instance, will be one class. So if you use display flex on 25 different components, it will only be sent once in a style tag, I guess. And each component will refer to that class. So it makes everything way easier in terms of specificity. which means that if you go and you have descendants and multiple things, you won't have to overwrite like everything. And here it goes, like specificity, easy overrides, and then if you have like a color that you want to be set up by JSON, whatever. Yeah, so it should be, in terms of CSS cleanliness, pretty good. And we are going to look at this. All right. So I am installed. I'm going to relaunch that new guy here now with styled stitches. So let's create it here. Stitches config.ts. All right. I'm gonna be very lazy and just copy paste it. All right. Let's go, and we're gonna start bare bone, nothing crazy we're going around, just really like the base minimum to get our first component going, just to make sure everything works, and then we'll just like explore all of the goodness. So I want to export two things because I'm gonna have styled, which is going to be pretty much a drop-in replacement for style components if you use those. And CSS, I guess, is the one that will just export the classes. So no fancy things, and it's going to be a string if I understand correctly, or maybe an array. And yeah, create styled, and I'm going to pass an array of prefix, which is really not necessary. Thank you, typings. So for those who don't know what TypeScript is, one of the very good advantage of TypeScript is this idea that in JavaScript, every variable, you can set it as a number, then set it as a string later on, then set it up as an object, and it doesn't really matter because it is not typed. TypeScript, as the name implies, means you type your variables, your different properties, you type your function parameters, you typed your function returns, so you have like a very good predictability of what is what, and it makes everything a little bit easier because sometimes you have like names of variables, which is like breakpoints, for instance, and you have absolutely no idea what's going on into breakpoints. With TypeScript, your code editor will actually break and not compile if you send something that's not supposed to be sent. So it's sometimes a pain, but most of the time it saves you from doing stupid mistakes, like returning strings into numbers when you don't know you do it and stuff like this. So, but we're going to explore this later on because it's really important, I think. So we're going to use breakpoints for sure. We're going to use tokens for sure. And we're going to go in detail into it. And utils, we'll see what we can do with this. So I export everything and I should be good to go. So going back to my amazing hello world, which should be able to, first of all, import styled from, I guess here it would be, there we go, if I manage to type, there we go. And here you can see that tilde is really just a reference to that base path that I saved. And it makes everything way easier because you don't have to go in and be like, oh, at what level am I? Oh, I'm in pages. Okay, I need to go up one more. And then you don't know where you're going. You're just like, oh no, I'm source. Okay, so it's going to be this one. And you never know where you are. So here it makes like a relative to the base of your project. I am going to create, so they want to create a button, but I am going to be going off-road straight up the bat, and we are going to call it a title. So in my case, I want to have a styled element, and here I can see that we are going to go here. So first difference, if you are coming from the style component, you usually get that dot notation, and then you pass in your CSS like this, and you do your whatever you want to do like this. That's how you would do it with style component. As far as I understand it, in order to be easier to port to Internet Explorer, they chose to go into the full function parameter paradigm, which is fine to me. So here you can see I have a list of stuff I can set as my tag, which is really cool because it will, if I go in and I go in for span, but I'm not really good at typing span, it will actually tell me it's not good because it's not in the list of what's accepted. So that's one of the goodies of TypeScript. So here we're going to do an H1, and we are going to just give it the color red, which needs to be a string. There we go. Here, here, and I am going back here, and when I save, it turns red. Hooray! All right, style.dev works too. All right, so I guess you can also straight up go in and style H1, I guess, but then you would need to, yes, and then you would pass it as a proper parameter things, because style component will just like use the backtick function, not hack, but just like how JavaScript works to just like pass it. It is a function also, but yeah, so this would be equivalent. Still red, and for people that don't trust me, there we go. I personally prefer to use this notation, especially if I'm trusting Christian into believing this is easier to port to Internet Explorer. All right. Thank you, Pedro, for your comment. I guess it will maybe help someone at some point. All right. So I am going to maybe split screen my... can I split screen my thing? Okay, now we're going to go and keep on doing the documentation. So basically you can put everything you want into that object. Remember, this is the camel case JavaScript notation of colors. So let's say you want the background color, you'll have to background color. You don't kebab case it. And actually, let's go see if we can derail stuff straight out of the bat. I think yellow would be nice. So if we do something like this, all right. There you go. So if you hate JavaScript notation, I guess you can kind of CSS notation it. Pretty sure you will lose a little bit of what the goodness of TypeScript and everything using it, but I guess you can. So let's continue. Pseudo classes. All right, so I guess you can do just what I did. Pretty much define anything you want from CSS and be like, okay, so if you want, you can go into red when you get overed. And there you go. And if I look at that definition, I'm gonna show you what it looks like. So here I have my different classes. So you can see here it's like initial BC is, I think, the name of the classes defined by Stitches. And you see, rather than having one class that regroup multiple properties, you will have one class per property, which means that if I go in and define another one, like let's call it subtitle, which is going to be a styled h2. If I manage to type, there we go, and we have a color green. There we go. Let's go into a fragment. Oh, come on. All right, and here I'm gonna say hello world, just testing, whatever. I have my just testing here, and if I understood correctly, you can see those two elements have the same class, which hold the green coloration, which makes it maybe a little bit more difficult to see if you come from outside of the developer world and you just inspect the source, because you have like one class per property, but it makes also way easier and way lighter to send, because rather than sending two big payload, you would just have to send the number of properties that you need. So I think there's a trade-off here. I think it's better to do it this way, but we'll see later on when we'll have like maybe a little bit more components and see how it goes. All right. Going back to here, pseudo elements. So you can do whatever you want with pseudo elements. I guess that's the meaning of this. Descendant selector. All right. This is really interesting, because if you are coming from, you know what? Let's go and styled components, and I need to save it. So this way we'll be able to just like show maybe some differences. I'm not sure. Well, I'm sure Pedro is going to be like, oh, yet again, someone using styled components. And I'm going to call it styled comp. It's not really... it's not really straight out of the documentation, but it doesn't really matter. Let's call it paragraph. You would do something like this. And everything you write inside here is really just like a CSS string that you send, and you can use whatever you want from CSS and also SCSS, sorry. So you would go and do something like aqua blue is not really great, but let's say blue. And then you would go in and say, okay, I want my span that are inside to be color red. And inside those, I want my underlines to be... okay, that's not a really good example, but I guess let's go with pink. So if you save this and you go in and say, okay, I have my paragraph. Hello, everyone. I want a span. Everyone, this is nice. You would get something like this, where you have your descendant as you would write your CSS, SCSS, sorry. So it's more like string as if you were writing into your CSS files. From what I understand, the descendant selector is going to be a little bit different in Stitches, as you would need to be very careful how you define everything, because you can't just target one class, because as you see here, that H1 has multiple class, so you wouldn't be able to just go in and say that specific paragraph inside whatever. So we're gonna try and see how we can make it work or break, and yeah, let's go. So if we want to reproduce the exact same behavior, let's call it par, and this one is going to be styled. That's a paragraph, and we have a color which is blue, needs to be a string, and needs to be here. And then you would need to pass the descendants. So in that case, that's going to be span. We have the color, then we go in and say red. But can you go one step deeper? I don't see why you wouldn't. Let's try. And let's go for pink. And yeah, you should be able to, just because if TypeScript allows me to do this, it usually means you're allowed to do it. We're just gonna confirm. Yeah, so that's exactly the same thing, except you don't really have like the SCSS notation. You just have to really think in terms of object, which I'm pretty sure helps massively in terms of bundle size, because you have way less logic to go in and just like parse the whole CSS things, and you don't have to include SCSS into your libraries just to have this behavior. So that's great. But now I want to try something a little bit difficult, maybe. Let's go in and say, let's call it nice. This is a styled U. All right, so if I do something like this, this will work. Just because this is really not useful, because we define everything, so it's really easy. Let me just see what we do here. Yeah, so as you can see, I have like actually a specificity collision here, which is fine. But let's say I don't want to have this guy here, but I still want every nice things written into that part. So this targets every use, but now what if I go in and how would I do this? So this is not part of the documentation. I'm 100% out of on my own, and let's say I just include this. All right, so it's not really liking its unexpected token. That's very true. This will do nothing. Of course, so how would I go in and do this? Let me just see if I can see what's going on here. Can I stringify that guy? There's nothing here. Oh, you would... Oh, okay, you would set it up as an array. Let's go. I have my own personal documentation. That's great. All right, and this guy would be backticks, I guess. Very nice. All right. So you can target this, which is awesome because it means you can have like your button groups, for instance, where you can say, okay, I want my destructive buttons to be on the left side. I want my let's just do this right now. So we're gonna go and call it button group. And this guy is going to be, I don't really like using divs, but let's go for divs. Let's go for a very nice flex. And let's say they, no. Flex direction. It's gonna be a row reverse. And that's really great to have like all of this auto-completion and everything. That's really useful actually. And I don't have any plugin specific for Stitches and whatever. It will come with using it on VS Code or whatever compatible IntelliSense IDE. All right, so I have my button groups, and I'm gonna remove that paragraph, and I'm gonna remove that guy here. That guy here doesn't need to be here anymore. I'm going to do my button group that will host a list of buttons. And actually, it's a very nice segue into variants, and we'll see what we can do with this at some point. Button, which is going to be a style button. And we don't have to do anything yet. There we go, button. Let's call it delete. Then we have create. Then we have cancel. All right. So as you can see, I do have my delete button row reversed to be on the right side. Then you have create, then we have cancel. So maybe something you want to have in your application. It will depend on your style guides and what your designer and UX people will just like, hey, it will be a very good idea to enforce all of your delete buttons to be on the left side of those button groups. So first of all, I'm going to do like a very... All right. Thank you. Thank you, Pedro. Thank you for the help. I was actually like the descendant selector is actually one of the big thing. I was like, oh, I'm not sure if it works, but it's great that it does because it will allow us to vast amount of cool things. But yeah, hopefully I will do justice to your work, and it looks to be very, very nice so far. So fingers crossed, it's gonna keep on being extremely nice. All right. So first of all, we'll just like get some basic styling here. Let's say I want to get like 0.5 rem, 1 rem. Yeah, so I can just like create this button all by itself. I don't really have to worry too much about, hey, is there other things inside those buttons? Because I can just come in here and say that I want let's try this. Any button which is followed by, which is precedent, sorry, by a button, will get some specific styles. So in that case, it's going to be a margin left. Well, I have a row reverse, but yeah, it doesn't really matter. Let's say 1 rem. So yeah, so I have a row reverse. Okay, let's go and not row reversed. It makes everything a little bit more complex. All right, so you can see you can do stuff like this where you just like, you don't have to style this inside the button itself, because the button itself probably doesn't have to worry about am I followed by something else or not, and it makes everything way easier. So you don't have to worry about overriding this behavior if you don't want it, and it makes everything lots harder. You can leave everything to be as expected. So let's going back to what I wanted to say is you may want to have variants. So in that case, you maybe want to have a button that is a destroy button that is kind of reddish. Then you want to have like a create button, which is maybe bluish or greenish. And maybe you cancel, you want it to be a little bit muted. So you have multiple ways you can do stuff like this. So first of all is you can extend styles, I'm pretty sure. And here I'm already off the documentation. I'm very bad soldier. I promised everyone to be like on track, but I need to try this out. So let's call it not create button, but just like construct button. So if you follow me for sometimes you'll see I'm very bad at naming stuff. Part of it is because I'm French, obviously. The other part is I'm just not really good at naming stuff. So yeah, that's what it is. All right. So here you can define to either use an actual HTML tag, but I'm pretty sure they allow you to just say, give me the button, and this will add some style to it. So here we're gonna go with like background color, red. There we go. Am I allowed to do this? Expected 2 arguments. Okay, let's go and let's white. All right, so what's going on with this guy? An argument for base style was not applied. Okay, let's go to the documentation. I think I am a combinator. Yes. Next sibling, refer to another combinator. Yeah. So if I was really just following the stuff, I would see I have my icon here. All right, so I just had to read the doc. All right, that's always the answer, read the doc. Styled SVGs. Style a component, right, a row. Okay, so if you have something else, SVG class name, okay, that's not what I'm looking for. Yeah, I guess they really push to get the variance. Or am I just stupid? Okay, I just want to have this working first. How would you do this? Can you send like a style component and overstyle it, or can you just do variance? Style React comp, write a row, and anything that is below. Okay, so that would be descendant still. I mean descendant, right? Yeah. Okay, let's do variance. I think that's the point of all of this. All right, so here you have this guy here. And one of the cool things is, rather than having those functions that I showed earlier, like when we set up stuff, there is this concept of variance. So, which is, I think, one of the main selling point of those kind of things. So let's not call it type, because type is used in buttons for something else. Let's call it action. It's not great, but that's what's gonna be. And I want my action to be constructive. And let's call like background color is gonna be green. And my color is gonna be white. Okay, I'll really have to get used to writing object style stuff. Let's say destructive. Background color is gonna be red. And other things that you'll see if, composing components. I'm not sure if that's part of, maybe it's just because I didn't read the doc correctly. Maybe I'll just have to see breakpoints, overriding styles. Yeah, so that's the CSS. Composing components, there you go, it just wasn't far enough. Alright, so it was supposed to be working. Okay, we'll go back to this a little bit later. And obviously I'll have to do some timestamp and stuff so people don't think it's not possible. Okay, so let's say color white. And I think anyway, the variance is the best way to go. I think it's easier to understand for designers. And also, it prevents you from overextending everything, and then one day you come in and you just change the base one and you just like change everything on your website, which is maybe what you want. But from my experience, it's mostly not what you want, and then you end up fighting everything. So here I go back to my code here, and what's really interesting is now that I have defined my variant here, I can come into my buttons and I go and I see that I have all of the button stuff that I can do usually, but I also have like action. And my action is what I want it to be, so either constructive or destructive. So here I go, and that's one of the good things about having everything super tightly typed. It really helps the developers that, let's say I write those components and actually I just give it constructive to the wrong one. Destructive. All right, let's say I come into a code base that I don't know. It's actually super good to have that kind of auto-completion because you really don't have to know too much about this. You don't have to look at the definition, you can just look at auto-completion and you'll be set. Which is definitely not the case when you're not typed. All right, so you see here I have my delete and my create, applying the right variance. It makes stuff really interesting when you want to combine some of them. So I have here my action, so you can consider this as prop. But let's say you want something that is a shadow or something. You want your variance to be none, I guess, would be not defined. But let's say near, and here I go in and I say box shadow. That would be something like 2 pixel, 2 pixel. Do we want some blur? Sure, let's go some blur. And let's say it is somewhat dark, but not too much, 50-50. Oh, let's go like full dark, but we have like, 40. So I have this. I can now use shadow and say this guy, well, I mean, I don't need to have this. I can just say, okay, I want this guy to have like a shadow, and you can't really see it too much. So we're gonna go and amp the volume on this guy. All right, and then you see I have a shadow here, and it's very easy to just go and ask your designers, or you if you are the designer, to just define like the 5, 6, 10 variants that you want to have in your application, and just use them like this, rather than having people passing props being like, well, first of all, rather than overriding CSS on top of it, but also writing props like as child, and then if it as child you want to have shadows and you do your logic within the component itself, you do all of the things that you want outside, and you pass, and this button is just graphical. So yeah, I think it just like prevents a lot of it does prevent a lot of problems down the road, where if you look at style component, they kind of do way too much. So yeah, we'll explore this a bit later on, but here I want to go back to that composition of elements, because it's also something you may want to do, especially if you want to have all your buttons to have like the specific style, and then you want to extend those elements. So let's go back and say that I have a base button, styled button, and I am going to pass it, let's say I hate outline, none, and I hate borders. Let's go. So that's your base button. All right, so you define this, and then you just extend it here. Okay, now he's happy. I'm not really sure what happened. So, and you see they don't have outlines and borders or whatever. All right, so I'm not sure why it didn't like itself before. All right, let's continue. I'll just like look at the video later on, because I probably have like some commas or stuff that wasn't properly placed. But what's really cool is now that you have this extension, you can either use variants if you know you're not gonna target stuff, but you can also extend things. So let's create this back construct button, which is equal to styled button, and I'm gonna take those constructs here, we said. So I have this guy here, and let's say I don't have those variants anymore because I want to use something else. But I want to keep shadows, let's say. Looks good, looks good, looks good. And this doesn't exist anymore, so it's going to complain in a bit. And I'm going to call also destruct button styled. Yeah, I just like mistyped something at some point. It's also very possible. Background color is going to be red. And color is going to be white. There we go. All right, so I don't have those variants anymore. So this doesn't do anything. And I'm actually surprised it didn't say it wasn't happy about it. I was going to use another word. Anyway, construct buttons, you can also do something like this. Did I disable TypeScript at some point? And destruct button, always. Let's go. All right. So we're back to create delete, just as it is. And as you can see, just because it is a composition of that button, I can still pass that variant, which is extremely useful. But now what's really interesting is I can target those constructive and destructive children. Let's go in and say I want anything that is destruct button to be order as -1, and I need to not type this, and anything that is construct button to be order 2, for instance, or 1, I guess, is good enough. All right, what did I miss? I missed a comma here. There we go. And now we have our ordering. So no matter how I place my buttons, I guess it does matter because I have this guy here. And we're gonna just use another property, which is not so well known, but really useful, gap, which works for grid and flexes. Super useful, use it, it's great. And we're gonna go and use the same gap that we had before, 1 rem, so you don't have to worry too much about where the margins are and stuff. But no matter how I place my buttons, they are going to show in the order that my designer enforced. And that's going to be a property of that button group. So that's super great. I'm delighted that they did this kind of descendant. And you can see here it starts to have like way more classes applied. And actually it does apply border top, border right, border bottom automatically, so you don't have like overriding and specificity races, I guess. So yeah, so that's great. TypeScript is not super happy about this guy, but it still works because it's not aware of that destruct button. I guess they should have something like this. Yeah, variance to make it work should be on this actual one. If you want it to be 100% pure. Okay, so it's kind of slow. I'm not sure what's happening. But yeah, so overall, all of this works just great. Let's try and do some other things a little bit more advanced. So first of all, if you work in with UX people, UI people, and stuff like this, you will most likely have a design system. So it's not like to the developer to say what green is what green, what red is what red, because if it's up to me, I'm just gonna say, okay, it's gonna be F0 330, and it's kind of red, but it's not gonna be the same red as everyone else. So you want like a design system that kind of clarifies all of the different colors that you can use, the different spacing that you can use. And this is going to be usually stored as tokens. So I'm going to go and see in the documentation. Can I go and see everything? Yes, I can see everything here. Configuration, tokens, here we are. Okay, so we have like those tokens where you can do different things. So, and this is up to your discretion. You can either use the red 100, the red 200, red 300 notation, where it's like a bit more red, a bit less red, or whatever. You can also have like primary, then you define your primaries, secondaries, and everything like this. It's really up to you. I'm going to do it as simple as possible. Oh, computer is not happy. Okay, so let's go colors. I am going to say that let's go primary. Let's go primary is going to be I'm going for navy. Then I'm gonna go for secondary, and we're gonna change this at some point. Why is it not happy? No value exists in scope secondary. Sure. Okay, I don't know blue. Okay, it's just like my computer is having some problems. I guess it's related to streaming. Sure. All right, so colors, that's it. I want to have maybe I will have to go destructive. And this one is going to be my extremely beautiful F3030. Then we'll have constructive. There again, it's RGB, so it's going to be 30 F0 30. Okay, let's go and use this. And now that we have those tokens, you should be able to just use those tokens inside your... You should be able to use them here. So this is not green anymore. This is constructive. And is it working? Sure, it is. And I can see here that rather than using... It just like adds everything into my CSS variables. So it's really great because it also means that it is not doing any re-rendering. It's just like leaving all of this CSS variables and all the heavy lifting of changing colors. If you ever change colors, I'm not sure if you can. I guess theming would change it. Yeah, let's go. Everything that was green is going to be constructive. And basically you can use this as a very simple color, background yellow. I guess this one is the reddish, so it's going to be destructive. There we go. For every red. Okay, it is not working. Let me see what we have here. Background color is something it doesn't know or doesn't like. Okay, what did I miss? Okay. So I do have all of my... Oh. Okay, now I have a bunch load of new things. Can I not define my own tokens? Or is it because I broke it? Let me see. Okay, I have my size, font size. Colors, font size. Am I not supposed to define my own? Scale, backend prefix. Use them in your style components. Am I missing something? Did I need to reload? Let's go. No. Okay, it seems to... I do have my tokens here properly defined. So if I were to go in here and say background color is variable of colors destructive. That would work. What am I missing? Background color. Am I not allowed to define my own ones? That would make sense in some ways, but also not. This is based on system UI. Sure, colors, then you have your things. You have different things. Okay, yes, sure, this is great. Tokens also work into CSS. Let's try it there. And we're gonna kill that variant as well. Let's make it as simple as possible. Okay, and here I want to say background color is going to be primary. Okay, so it does work into my CSS, but not into my... And you can see here, oh, maybe it's too low for you. Yeah, you can see here I have my CSS variables, and here I have my class that calls that CSS variable. So I'm not 100% sure why it doesn't trigger here. Let's try with this guy here. Still working. Primary destructive. Oh, maybe it's just because I mistyped it. Yeah. There you go. Yeah, it's just because I'm stupid. That is 100% what happens to me all the time. Constructive. All right, I'm just really stupid. That's it. All right, it worked from the get-go. We saved. So, really good if you want to define all of your different colors that you use throughout your application. And it makes everything super easy to just come in and say, okay, that green is not really beautiful, so we're gonna just go in and see what we can do with this. Maybe you want something a bit darker like this. Yeah, sounds good. And now you have your constructive color, and it's going to be throughout your whole application. You can change everything. So let's go and do the same with that not super nice red and be like a more, yes, something like this. That's my destructive. And basically this kind of works as your theme. So it is extremely useful. And let's say something else that I really like, to have my buttons, to have a pointer. There you go. Wait, no. Oh. It's always the opposite. Sure. Cursor. Pointer. Yeah, there we go. Still stupid. All right, so really great. You get your tokens, you define whatever you want, and if I understand this correctly, here you have your colors, then you can define your space. For instance, let's say I usually call them extra small. or maybe none. Let's go for it. This is going to be 0. Then I have extra small, which is very minimum. Then I have small, which is going to be 5 rem. Actually, this is the medium one. So let's go and say medium, small, and then I have large. Let's say, for instance, 1 rem. All right, so you have those, and basically here, those can be used only on property that can be spaces, if I understand correctly. So for some reason, it looks like my computer is dying, but it makes it sense that, let's say I have my medium here, that I get my medium size, then I go in and I have like my large size. There you go. And if you want to do a little bit of both, medium, large, there you go. And basically it comes in and say, let's say in 6 months, someone is coming in and say, okay, this was made by a developer, but we want to go a little bit on a better scale or whatever, and we just want people to be like, hey, I want 0.75. You just have to change it, and it will just like change throughout your whole application. So this works kind of theming at this point. All right, and of course, feel free to send a message in the chat if you have some question, and I can just try it out with you right now, live. I'm just poking the stuff now. I'm just trying out new things and see what's going on. So we're gonna keep on poking this, and we are going to look at something else. Yeah, so you have the property mapping, so colors maps to those elements, those properties. Font size, okay, it makes sense. All of this makes a lot of sense. Spaces, all right, theming. Let's go with theme. Okay, additional themes that can override your default tokens. All right, let's see what we can do with this. So I think it's here. You would define a new do I want to call it? Yeah, let's go for dark theme as well, because I think it's the most it's the most of what people are gonna use. And actually, I would not to export const. I'm going to not export it yet. Okay, so I would overwrite my okay, so here you would overwrite high contrast, low contrast. All right, so it auto completes. I can overwrite the background, for instance, and I want this guy to be 30, 30, 30. And then I want my text color to be something very, very light. Okay. Okay, so I have my dark theme, and let's not use this here. Let's use it into my index here. So I will import my CSS. Okay, so I have my dark theme, and now I can use my dark theme. Let's use it on my button, for instance. Isn't it how they used it? Display flex, class name, dark theme. To present the class name. What did I miss? What did I miss? It's maybe because I didn't define this anywhere, which would make a lot of sense. Base button. Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. Background color is equal to background. And color is equal to text color. And those are strings. All right, so I have now my dark theme, and I can just remove it, and I am now in my light theme. All right, that's great. So you basically override your tokens, which makes sense in the term of atomic ways of doing things. Okay, so I'm not sure why those come back here. Maybe it's when you don't define anything. When you reload it. Oh no. Oh my god, I'm just extremely stupid. This is yes, this is a Stitches.dev actual theme. I'm just 100% stupid. Yeah, so this is mine. Perfect. So I have my dark theme, which is, you can see here, text color is black, background is white, but here on this specific element, it gets reversed. And you can see here, it gets reversed by the theme class, theme 0, which just like override just by changing one class, it just like override everything because everything is using CSS colors and CSS variables, sorry. All right, that's super great, extremely great, and it also means that you could do this on a reset, for instance, and you could change the whole platform. Yeah, that's super great. Let me see if I were to go in and use this here, it would erase that. Yes, theme 1 would be applied to it and all of his descendant. So that's extremely useful. So you can even have like not just themes in terms of colors, but you can also have something that looks like and I guess you can just like mix them all. Let's go and call those here. And it's not gonna be dark theme, it's gonna be big. And this guy is gonna be multiplied by 4, let's say. Small is gonna be 1. This one is gonna be 2. And this guy is gonna be 4. Can I use big here? I just missed what I wanted to do. Perfect. Wouldn't be the first time. All right, it doesn't work here. Can you just theme colors? Default tokens. Can you just do this on tokens? It looks like none is not expected. Okay, let's wait for this guy here. Okay, so I can erase text color, but I can't erase small. All right, so I guess you can't really have like a low vision stuff. I'm gonna just like send a tweet and see what's going on with this. Yeah, that was a hunch anyway. Didn't really expect this to work. So let's go back to dark theme for here. This is good. This works well. Yeah, I'm just surprised you can't. It would be only for your. So maybe it's not theme, but it would be something else. Let me see. Okay, my auto-completion is having trouble. Okay. Theme. Okay, I think that don't have one. It would be strange to be length because that's not what it is. Get styles. Let's see what it does. What is it expecting? Identifier. Sure. I guess it's just like something else. Okay. I'll just have to reach out and send a tweet and see what's going on with this. I'm just maybe stupid. I'm gonna put it in the description if there's something for changing tokens that are not colors. Sure. That would have been super great. But yeah. All right, so let's go back to our configuration and let's add some breakpoints. So breakpoints, if you're not familiar with this, is straight up media queries. So in that case, I will say mobile is going to be rule and then this returns at media min width and for me I will say 500 pixel. You can target stuff from other way, but sure. And I guess it makes sense, it returns all of this into breakpoints. What did I miss? Did I miswrite it? No, it's good. All right. Return at media. It's a min width of uncat pixel, and actually this guy would be max width. Okay, so what's happening here? I'm missing a comma here. An object literal duplicate. Sure, I'm stupid again. let's go. So I have my different breakpoints, and now responsive variance. Okay, so you can define variance depending on okay, so let's say I have my buttons, but I want to go back here, and actually this guy is going to be tablet. And this guy is going to be desktop. So I want on tablet to be let's go one step down. Yes. All right, and you want on desktop to be padding medium to large. All right. So this screen here is 1200 pixels, so we should be triggering space S. All right, small. So if I go in and change the width of this to 500, it should props up. All right, so you have your responsive query as well, and if I go over, it should props once more. It doesn't. It doesn't. Desktop, what did I do wrong? Sure, that's a very good point. It's usually always the answer. What did I do wrong? Yeah, and there we go. So you have your responsive here as well. So it's a bit less, it is a little bit less friendly than typing like the SCSS, at least for me, which I'm really used to typing those CSS, SCSS strings. But I can see how it can be massively helping with the typings. Yeah. All right, makes sense. So here I would need to create like a extra small, small, super large, extra large, or whatever. Yeah, there's something I want to try though, is how would I do that breakpoint if I want to do it for print? Print. Print, it is going to be all right. So I want my button when you print to be let's do something stupid, for rem. Okay, so it doesn't do anything, but if I enable printing, doesn't do any other changes. Let me see what we get here. Why don't you show me my style sheets? What's going on? Show me my style sheet. Okay. Where is my style sheet? Scripts. Okay. All right. How would I do my print stuff? Let me see if I can see, because I asked this, I asked Christian for this. Deal with specificity for width, height, query, orders matters, but you can technically put any media query here or just inline them in your styling definition. You can technically put any media query here. Okay, so on prints, and I'm using it at the end. Sure. It's because I'm stupid. It is because I am stupid, always. So it works just well. There we go. So for those who don't know, Firefox has a print preview. And basically it just triggers every @media print. So yeah, so I am just stupid once again. So you can do your media queries with print in here just fine. And this is really useful if you are dealing with a lot of column flexes, because column flex doesn't work at all with multi-pages and defining break afters and stuff like this. So yeah, that's really great. All right, I feel like it's quite verbose if you compare to style components, but it also feels a little bit safer in some points. So yeah, so I'm going to do that page, that specific page, using different styles. So one is going to be style components, the other one is going to be stitches that I have here. Of course, I will simplify it a little bit, so it is actually a little bit more what we expect, and I'm going to do a small comparison. But before this, actually, I just had an idea. I am going to look for interesting hacks, because I saw two, not hacks, but really nice things, and I want to see how it works on Stitches, and I think it would be super great. So one of them is you can use booleans as variants. By that meaning, what I want to say is you can use variants, shadow, for instance, as we had before, and true is going to be, for instance, box shadow. Let's go back to what we had before. I think it was 8 pixel. 8 pixel, a little bit of a blur, and this is going to be 0, 0, 0, 0. Am I missing one? Yes. And this is going to be not 40%, but 40 hexadecimal percent. And what this means is you could technically go in and say shadow, So you don't even have to just like define an actual proper value for it. Well, I mean, it is a proper value, but React will pass shadow as shadow true. So it's really nice if you want to have this or be like, okay, something that would be a little bit better, I guess. I'm going to be button groups. And I'm going to say variance ordered true. And I'm gonna take this two guys here. All right. Let me see here. So those guys should not be ordered anymore. There we go. I have this in any different whatever, but if I come in and say I want them to be ordered, there you go. You have your order. That is actually super, super nice. And it's something that you can do with style components, but you do it in functions rather than doing in variants. And I think variants is a little bit more, you need to think a little bit more about what you're doing, but in the long term, it will save you a lot of trouble and a lot of pain. So that's great. Another thing that I didn't talk about is, and I'm going to try it, is you should be able to font size for rem is you are able to override some of the properties locally. So for instance, if you have like a color that you want to absolutely show, and let's say this one is yellow, is gonna actually precede everything that you have here. So let's say you have a list and each items has specific colors to it. You can define it into that CSS, which is effectively the equivalent of style, but with the addition of it actually deals with all the precedence and will remove the classes that you don't need. So you won't have to re-render anything. You won't have to have functions going in and say, oh, it is the color, oh, it's yellow, so I'm gonna pass this and create a class dynamic on it. All of this looks to be very, very simple in terms of bundle size and calculation. Let me see, where is my yellow here? All right, so yellow is here. And this overrides my color white that is not even passed. So it's great. It's actually really, really great. Because obviously you should be able to do it with style, which does the same thing. But if I look at style thing, this gets inlined into my style, but also does it? Wait. Oh yeah, sure. It's this guy. Where is my white? Color is this? Oh yeah, there it is. Okay. So you see here, this gets overridden because I actually inline it using React style prop. But if I use CSS, which is provided by Stitches, though that white doesn't exist even. So there's no problem of specificity and stuff like this. So it is actually super interesting when you have like components that will change some colors, but you don't want to have like a variant for all of the colors, for instance, because it is stupid. So you want to define your variants as main things, but if you have to change one thing rather than declaring like a new button group that you extend and then you define the color in it, you actually can just like pass it here. So that's great. You can also pass like CSS variable here, and it's something that you use if you use CSS modules a lot in the style thing, which is essentially the same thing. All right, so there's something else I wanted to see, and it is Stitches reset. Oh, sure, there's lots of, yeah. Let's go for Stitches.js. And I think it's this guy I saw recently. And what it does is CSS global reset. Let me see that. So this is the reset that you see. Let's just yonk this. Let's just yonk this. There we go. Reset. All right, so no margin, font size, display, block, all of this is block, hidden, display none, body, block quote, border spacing, yes. There's something that I always, it's not border box, it is content, no, box sizing, border box, yes. I want everything to be box sizing, border box. It's something that is extremely irritated to me that it's not by default. And this is also going to be font size, everything is 1 rem by default unless specified otherly. Font size 100%. No, I don't like this. 1 rem. I mean, it is the same thing, but mentally, I think it's better here. And here, I would say reset. And I guess I would need to call it CSS global reset. Interesting. And of course, if you use like Next.js, you can do this into your underscore app, which is essentially like every pages, well, not every pages, but every component that you export, yeah, every pages, or you can also do it in your underscore document if you want to do it. Oh, why is it not happy about this? Reset doesn't like it. Okay, I'm not sure why it's not happy, but probably is incompatible with signature. Oh, I guess it doesn't know this specific one. It knows like each one individually. Okay, I'm gonna let this one slide. Yeah, so that's great. You would do and put this into your app, and there you go. And then you go. You have your proper resetted styles. And do they apply to all of them? Margin tops, margin bottoms, yes. All right. Actually very good. Actually very, very good. So yeah, so now we are going to do those 3 pages. I'm going to simplify this one a little bit. And we are going to do those 3 pages that are very, very simple. And do them in style component, stitches, which is already done, and CSS modules, which is one of my preferred way to do it, but it makes everything a little bit more complex to share as a team, because everyone needs to be super at ease with it. All right. So that title here, subtitle, constructive, makes sense, makes sense. We're going to style it a little bit better. So as we set the font size to be 1 rem in our reset, we're going to push it here because we are mostly interested in the semantics here, not in how it displays, but we still want to show it properly. This one is going to be font size. And actually, this is a very good use case of tokens, if we wanted to have tokens. Stitches config. Could we have space, I guess? Is it spaces? No, spaces, okay, I already have it. Let me see what we have. I'm gonna keep butchering everything here. Themings. Not themings. Tokens. Space. Shadows. Font weight. Font size. That's what I was looking for. Font sizes. So we're gonna get XXS. Let's go for XS first. I don't have the real value, but I think it's something like this. Small is going to be medium is going to be 1 rem. Sure. Then I will have, I don't really like this, large, which is going to be rem, sorry, I had brain freeze, extra large, which is going to be, I always forget this one, but it is 153. I have no idea. Don't quote me on this one. So basically the idea is like to have something that is proportional, but I have no idea and I'm really stupid. So this guy is going to be large, and this one is going to be extra large. There we go. And we are going to get some margin bottom, which is not the way to do it. Margin bottom. Margin bottom is going to be large, sure. And this guy here as well. There we go. There we go. All right, so let's skip this one. Base button. There's some shadows, button groups, ordered. All right. So let's create style.tsx. I'm gonna copy paste this bad boy here. Function implementation. Sure. Doesn't matter. Style components, and we are going to build the same stuff. So this one I'm way more used to, but as I said, I see a lot of potential trouble with it. So this guy had, am I going to do style themes and stuff? No, let's not do style and themes. Okay, let me see this guy here. All right, so it would look something like this. Font size, 2 rems, margin, bottom, 1 rem, color, I don't know which one, but let's use green for this time. Background color, this is going to be yellow. And now we are going to get overs. Color red. There we go. Then we're gonna get some subtitle. I'm not sure why, like, my IntelliSense is lagging so far behind. Anyway, it's not really important. Font size, this is 1.5 rems. Margin, bottom is going to be 1 rem. Color is going to be our green. Then we have our base button, which is going to be a style button. So obviously those would most likely be in my reset. Yeah, would be cursor pointer. Background color is going to be something like so yeah, so that's why I would use theme, but I don't really want to use theme. I guess I'll have to. Background. Color is equal to the same thing. Time. There we go. Text color. And then we have our variance. And that's where it becomes a little bit more sketchy, I think. Why is there this guy here? And that's where it becomes a bit more sketchy, because rather than having this variant things where you can define, okay, I have buttons with shadows, button without shadows, I will have to do some stuff like this. Box shadow, and I don't know why I have no, oh, there we go. I have no auto completion and stuff. Computer is dying, I guess. Streaming. But here you would do something like shadow. And depending if the prop shadow is defined, you are going to say something like 8 pixel, 8 pixel, 8 pixel, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or none. So you'll have stuff like this, and then if you have multiple variants, so you have shadow near, shadow far, shadow just shadows, you'll have to get this part of the function a little bit more complicated, and you start doing sometimes a lot of calculation within the function, which is not ideal. And also it's also something that you don't really want to have, especially if that calculation is somewhat expensive, because you most likely want to memorize it and have it inside your React logic. Anyway, it's not really the point here. So I have my button, which is a styled base button, to which I am adding some padding. Which in that case is going to be also something that is going to be a little bit more, not difficult, but a bit more error prone, I guess. So yes, let's go and let's use theme everywhere that we can. Theme spaces, and this one is going to be small. Small, there we go. Then we have the media queries. So media queries are interesting because you would just do it media min width is equal to 500 pixel. Then go in and say it's not happy about this expected TS style plugin. Am I missing something? What did I miss? Padding. Min width. This looks good to me. Except this is not small, but now it is small medium. There we go. And then we continue. We have our media screen. Min width. Yeah, it's just lagging behind. And then we have those, which I think kind of are difficult to follow. And of course, this would be good to have theme as well. We're just gonna not do it yet. So in that case, that's medium large, and then finally at media print, we want this, and here we don't need the style here anymore. We want just straight up 4 rams. Okay, we're getting there. Then we have our construct and destruct button, which are styled button, except they want to be specified like this. Theme, colors, constructive. I'm gonna try to keep them as close as possible. Okay, destructive styled button. background color. Theme colors destructive. Of course, and this guy I need to not forget to do this, and now I just need my button groups. Button group style div display flex direction row, which I think is anyway the default, so you don't really need this. Gap 1 rem, and here you have the variant or not variant, and it becomes a little bit more sketchy. So I am going to say, first of all, I'm going to say dark theme and ordered. So okay, we'll see how we do this later on, but I'm gonna start with ordered. So in that case, it's something I only want to show in the case I am ordered. So I'm going to do something like a big string interpolation. Ordered, and if I am ordered, if I'm gonna return a big string interpolation, which is going to be I maybe should have prepared this a little bit more. Destruct button. Destruct button is going to be order -1. Then construct button is going to be ordered 1. That's what I return. I return something empty. And this guy is a function. All right. What did I miss? Actually, I don't need to return this. Undefined is fine. Okay, so this should be somewhat fine. Destruct button. I probably meant destruct button. Yes, that's it. I'm striking again. All right, so if I have this, I just need to have my theme. I'm gonna yonk a theme. Where is my theme? Where are you? There we go. Okay, I'm gonna import with theme here. And I need to define my theme. Where are you? Where are you? Installation. Where are you? I just want to copy paste the theme really quick. So the selector, props, animation, I don't care. Oh, there's animation as well in Stitches, but how come it is not? Ah, yeah, there it goes. All right, so I want the same themes that I have here. I'm gonna copy paste that guy. Colors. Should have put everything into themes, I guess. Let's just go background. All right, background text color. There we go. Theme spaces S. Font sizes. Okay, should I really used all the theme? Yes, it makes sense. And we'll see what is not there. And I need to theme provider. There we go. And of course I need to import it. There we go. And let's see, what did I miss? Because I always miss something. With theme is not exported from style components. I was pretty sure it was. Import with theme from style components. Am I not in the right? Oh, that's embarrassing. That's what I use. With theme is not exported with style component. What's going on? (2017). Okay. I'm not stupid. It's import with theme from styled components. Theme provider. Let me just make sure I'm not 100% stupid. Style component. What? Am I at the right version? export style component, default theme, create a theme. Oh, is it just... Oh, sure. I'm just extremely stupid. That's 100% my fault. With theme. Did I mean with theme? Yes, I did. All right, there we go. I'm just extremely stupid. Okay, spaces S. Spaces. All right. Whew. We are here. Okay, all right, I would need to define and install it for rendering. Could not be loaded. You're not using theme provider, not passing a theme, or in a theme. Yes, theme. Sure, that's actually a very good. Of course, I need to theme provider. Provider. So you would do this into your app.js, underscore app.tsx, I guess, in here. There we go. There we go. And you would do this as here. This guy is that guy here. And this would be for default function, and rather than having children, this is going to be with style. All right, there we go. I want this guy to be in here. Why are you not working? Pick. Watch this. Okay, it doesn't matter. With style. Main, yes. And how come it worked here? What are you doing? Makes no sense. All right, yeah. So you would do it like in the underscore app. So you would see you have this guy here. We also have this guy here, and they are fairly similar. There's just the reset that is different. And you see the two ways of building stuff. So of course, this guy on the right is the Stitches version. This guy on the left is the style component one. And you see there are two main things that appears is you really get this idea of this is closer to CSS. So for me, it's like way easier to type because I'm really used to it. But when you get into themes, it becomes very, very messy, to my opinion. Whereas this one is like very, very clean. So yeah. Shadow does not exist on type pick. Sure. So I would need to actually define everything for TypeScript to be super happy about this, but that's fine. So yeah, those are extremely clean, I think. And I guess like my preference to write that SCSS style of typing is a preference, and it's something that I grown into. So I could definitely see this to be quite easy at some point. But this difference, if you look at the buttons, this is extremely messy and this is extremely error prone, I think. And I've seen from experience that it is extremely hard to read huge definition of that. So you're going in and just like, oh, theme, okay, spaces, okay, it's a small space, then, oh, it's a small space. And then you have to match it on here and be like, okay, what does it gives me? That gives me font size 2. Okay. Oh, sorry, it's the buttons. It gives me, okay, the padding is that guy here. And then I have one that is dynamic for the destructive that comes here. So I have here, this is reddish. This one is white. So it makes everything way harder to find. And if you look at this, this is extremely, I find this extremely clean. And if you use tokens that speaks to you, I think it's a very, very nice thing. And pretty much you can do everything you would do in the two things. Ordered here, I would have to define like some, hey, you can receive like ordered. This can be and this should be working. Divs. Anyway, I need to reload my TypeScript. I need to reload stuff. Anyway, so you would get all of this as well, like all the typings. But it's really easy because this is known, like the theme is known, so you can define your theme and be like, hey, it's going to be displayed this way or whatever. But I think the only thing, honestly, that I found to be strange is the theme not being able to override stuff other than colors as token goes, because I think that's strange. You may want to have a theme that is bigger, or someone that clicks and be like, hey, I want accessibility, and it's going to be big fat buttons where you know you can press for sure, and you don't have to be extremely skilled or like extreme dexterity to click on buttons. So I'm thinking of my grandparents, for instance. Yeah, so it's fairly similar. I think you have big advantage towards style components if you go to somewhat run and gun style stuff, prototyping. I think that's maybe easier because I think this way of writing is quicker. But as soon as you go into like a proper multi-page project, you start having those problem of, oh, I want to use themes, the same consistent spacing, same consistent color, and this is horrible. I do have a macro for this because I find it to be painful to write every time, especially if you have long components that requires like different themes and different properties. And that's where I think Stitches starts to shine. And the other thing is, obviously I didn't do the variance here, but when you have like this ordered returning, this is considered to be a string, so you'd lose all of your coloration, or syntactical coloration. Maybe there's a better way to do it. I'm not sure. I'm not going to prescribe it. But having those if-else in functions, which should be, I think, purely displayed. It only cares about the display. You should be able to just say ordered yes, no, and have either two different components or have variance. I think variance is really, really interesting and really, really nice. So yeah, overall, very impressive. I'm going to tweet what's going on with the themes and length and stuff like this, because I think that's a big oversight, and maybe it's just because I'm stupid and I don't know what to look at and it's actually doable, but I haven't found it in the documentation. This is a fairly young project, Stitches, so there's also the big possibility that it is not documented yet. Yeah, it's also a big thing. From what I understand, I haven't followed that. I haven't followed too much about Stitches and what's going on and what Christian did and what was passed and whatever. But I think there is also this idea of Modulz, which is a company that is Modulz, yes, which is a company that will help people get design easier in between engineers and designers. So designer can create variants and all other things, and the engineer that just have to input the variants, but all of the design and all of that styling, tokening, and tokenizing and everything is done by the designer, most likely. And from what I understand, they have like this multiple different avenues. I'm not sure what their business model is, but they want to build an ecosystem around that Stitches, React, Vue, in-betweener, where you can store your design guides and all of the things. But I'm not sure. This is not yet done. Obviously, everything looks to be beta or whatever. I don't know about this, but it's also something that is, I think, interesting, especially if you have to deal with like a zero height, Figma or whatever, and kind of always refer to this to create your component. If you have like an in-between, that's also something that can be really, really interesting. So yeah, looking forward to it. I don't see any questions in the chat, so I am going to close down the stream. Hopefully I didn't lose everyone, and I didn't... it was pretty brutal, I guess. So I don't know if you still... there's still people here, but yeah, I wish you a very good day, and I'm gonna keep on poking around Stitches from time to time and see what we can do with it. All right, so I guess I'm gonna shut the stream now and timestamp everything. All right, have a good day, everyone. Cheers.